Hey there, wonderful people. Welcome back to Mr. Love and Luxe, where we dive deep into tales that touch the heart, spark reflection, and leave you walking away just a little wiser about this wild thing called life. If you're new here, pull up a cozy spot, grab your favorite drink, and settle in, because today's story is one that'll grip you from the very first breath. And if you're a returning friend, thank you for coming back. You make this channel feel like home. Now, listen close, because this one starts with a moment that changes everything in an instant. She collapsed right there in the middle of the high-stakes boardroom, glass walls, buzzing laptops, executives frozen in shock as her body hit the floor. Paramedics rushed in, sirens blared through the Silicon Valley streets, and in that sterile hospital room, the doctors delivered the news that turned her world upside down. She was pregnant, 8 weeks along. But then the billionaire CEO, the man who held her heart in secret, leaned in, voice cracking with a mix of fear and hope, and asked the question that could shatter it all. Is that baby mine? Can you imagine? One second you're chasing deadlines and dreams. The next, your entire future hangs on a single heart-stopping question. Have you ever had a moment like that in your own life? A single phone call, a doctor's word, a confession that flipped everything you thought you knew. Where trust was tested, love was on the line, and suddenly nothing felt certain anymore. Drop a comment right now if you've been there. Tell me, yes, I know that feeling, or share your own quick story. I read every single one, and those comments light up this community like nothing else. Because here's the truth. We're all one unexpected twist away from questioning the people we care about most. The stakes couldn't be higher. A career built on merit, a romance kept hidden to protect them both, and now a child on the way that could either bind them forever or break them apart. If you're already feeling that pull, that mix of curiosity, empathy, and what happens next, then hit that like button right now to let me know you're locked in. And if this kind of emotional, uplifting storytelling with real lessons about trust, vulnerability, and second chances speaks to you, do yourself and me a favor. Subscribe and ring that bell. We drop these long, immersive stories regularly, and you won't want to miss the ones coming up. Seriously, subscribing takes 2 seconds and helps this channel grow so we can keep bringing you more heartwarming, thought-provoking narratives just like this. Alright, deep breath. Because what led up to that dramatic hospital scene is just as powerful. This isn't just a tale of shock and scandal. It's a beautiful, messy, redemptive love story about two people who built something real amid the chaos of ambition and success. It's about the quiet moments that turn strangers into soulmates, the fears we all carry from our pasts, and how choosing forgiveness and honest conversation can turn a crisis into the greatest gift of all. So, stick with me. We're going back a few months, to the late nights at Apex Innovations, where Elena Harper first caught the eye of Victor Langston, and where a spark quietly began that would eventually lead to that life-altering collapse. In the glittering sprawl of Silicon Valley, where dreams are coded into reality and fortunes rise faster than the morning fog burns off the bay, Elena Harper had carved out a life that many envied but few truly understood. At 28, she was a rising star at Apex Innovations, a powerhouse tech firm dedicated to pioneering renewable energy solutions that could one day power the world without costing the earth. Elena wasn't just any employee. As a project manager, she orchestrated teams with the precision of a conductor leading a symphony, ensuring prototypes moved from blueprint to breakthrough without missing a beat. Picture her on a typical day, dark curls swept into a no-nonsense ponytail that somehow still managed to frame her face with an effortless elegance. Hazel eyes sharp and focused behind sleek glasses as she pored over timelines and data charts. She moved through the open-plan office with purpose, her steps confident yet unassuming, always ready with an encouraging word for a junior engineer or a clever fix for a logistical snag. But Elena's drive wasn't born in the polished corridors of Apex. It stemmed from deeper roots, from a childhood in a quiet Oregon town, where resources were scarce and hard work was the only currency that mattered. Growing up as the daughter of a single mother who juggled 2 jobs to keep the lights on, Elena learned early that success demanded sacrifice. Her mom, a resilient woman with calloused hands and an unbreakable spirit, instilled in her the value of perseverance. "Honey," she'd say over simple dinners of soup and bread, "the world won't hand you anything. You build your path, brick by brick." Those words echoed in Elena's mind as she earned scholarships through high school, graduated top of her class in engineering from a state university, and landed an internship at Apex straight out of college. She climbed the ranks not through connections, but through late nights and innovative ideas that caught the eye of upper management. Yet, for all her professional triumphs, Elena's personal life felt like an unfinished sketch. Relationships had come and gone, brief flings with fellow ambitious types who understood the grind but couldn't match her depth. She craved a connection that went beyond surface-level chats about stock options or app launches. Deep down, she yearned for someone who saw her not just as a colleague or a conquest, but as a partner in the truest sense. Little did she know that someone was already orbiting her world, high above in the executive suite. Enter Victor Langston, the 35-year-old visionary at the helm of Apex Innovations. To the outside world, Victor was the quintessential billionaire CEO, tall and commanding, with broad shoulders that filled out tailored suits like they were made for him alone, and piercing blue eyes that could seal a deal or silence a room with a single glance. His smile, rare but genuine, carried a hint of mystery, as if he held the keys to secrets the rest of us could only dream of. He'd bootstrapped Apex from a humble garage startup into a global juggernaut, turning his passion for sustainable tech into an empire worth billions. Solar arrays in deserts, wind farms off coasts. Victor's innovations weren't just profitable, they promised a greener tomorrow. But success, as Victor often reflected in quiet moments, came with its shadows. Orphaned young, after a devastating car accident that claimed his parents, he was shuttled between distant relatives who prioritized achievement over affection. "Prove your worth," they'd drill into him, measuring love in report cards and accolades. It shaped him into a relentless force, but it also built walls around his heart. By his mid-30s, Victor's days blurred into board meetings, investor pitches, and international flights, leaving no room for the kind of vulnerability that real relationships required. He'd dated sporadically, glamorous events with models or executives, but nothing stuck. They saw the billionaire, not the man who lay awake at night wondering if his legacy would outlast his loneliness. That all began to shift one unassuming evening, about 6 months before the collapse that would redefine everything. It was well past midnight at Apex headquarters, the building a skeleton of dim lights and humming servers. Elena was deep in the weeds of the Aurora project, a groundbreaking solar initiative aimed at making clean energy affordable for remote communities. Spreadsheets glowed on her screen, coffee cups littered the conference table like fallen soldiers, and she muttered calculations under her breath, determined to crack a stubborn efficiency puzzle before calling it a night. The door creaked open, and in walked Victor, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, looking every bit the weary leader after a grueling day of negotiations. He paused, surprised to find anyone else there. "Miss Harper, burning the midnight oil again?" Elena glanced up, her heart skipping a beat, not from fear, but from the unexpected humanity in his voice. "Mr. Langston, yeah, just wrestling with these projections for Aurora, can't let it beat me." He chuckled, a low, warm sound that echoed in the empty room, and pulled out a chair across from her. "Aurora, like the northern lights, poetic for something that'll light up the world. Mind if I take a look? Sometimes a fresh perspective helps." What started as a quick review turned into hours of collaboration. Victor's insights were sharp, but so were Elena's rebuttals, sparking a lively debate that felt more like a dance than a discussion. As the clock ticked toward dawn, the conversation drifted beyond work. Elena shared her vision for energy equity, drawing from her own modest upbringing where blackouts were common. "It's not just about tech," she said, eyes alight. "It's about giving people a fair shot, no matter where they start." Victor nodded, leaning back with a thoughtful expression. "I get that. My folks, they dreamed big too before everything changed. Building this company was my way of honoring that. But sometimes I wonder if I've lost sight of the why in all the how." In that shared vulnerability, a connection flickered to life. It wasn't fireworks or grand declarations, just two people seeing each other clearly for the first time amid the fluorescent glow. As they packed up, Victor hesitated at the door. "Elena, thanks for tonight. It's been a while since work felt inspiring." She smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through her. "Any time, Victor." From there, their paths intertwined more deliberately. Victor started looping her into high-level strategy sessions, valuing her grounded perspective in a sea of yes-men. Casual coffee breaks evolved into lunches, where they'd discuss everything from industry trends to personal philosophies. Elena found herself opening up about her fears of burnout, while Victor confided in the isolation of leadership. "At the top, it's lonely," he admitted one afternoon over salads in the company cafe. "Everyone wants something from you, but no one really knows you." "I know you," Elena replied softly, her hand brushing his across the table, a simple touch that sent a quiet thrill through them both. Their first real date came after a triumphant product demo, when Victor suggested a walk along the San Francisco Bay to celebrate. The evening air was crisp, city lights twinkling like stars on the water. They strolled side by side, shoulders occasionally bumping in comfortable silence. "Elena," Victor said finally, turning to face her under a lamppost's soft halo, "in a world of deals and distractions, you're the real thing. You make me want to be better, not just at business, but at life." Her cheeks flushed, but she met his gaze steadily. "And you remind me that ambition doesn't have to mean going it alone. We could build something together, Victor, if we let ourselves." He cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheek, and leaned in for a kiss that was tender and full of promise, soft lips meeting in a moment that felt like coming home. It wasn't rushed or intense. It was a gentle exploration, a sealing of the spark that had been growing between them. From that night on, their romance blossomed in stolen pockets of time, always mindful of the professional lines they walked. Weekends became sacred escapes, drives up the coast to hidden beaches where they'd picnic and talk for hours, hands intertwined as waves crashed nearby. Or quiet dinners at Victor's penthouse, where candlelight flickered over home-cooked meals. Elena teaching him her mom's simple recipes, laughter filling the air as flour dusted their clothes. Their intimacy grew organically, rooted in emotional trust, shared glances that spoke volumes, gentle embraces that lingered, and whispered conversations in the afterglow of closeness, where they'd trace patterns on each other's skin and dream aloud about futures intertwined. But they kept it discreet, a secret garden amid the corporate jungle. Victor feared the whispers of favoritism. Elena worried about undermining her hard-earned respect. "We do this right," she'd say, nestling against him on a couch overlooking the city. "No shortcuts." "Agreed," he'd murmur, kissing her forehead. "You're worth every careful step." If this budding romance is pulling at your heartstrings already, two driven souls finding each other in the chaos, then pause for a second and show some love. Drop A in the comments if you've ever felt that spark in an unexpected place, or share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that love can bloom anywhere. And, hey, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Mr. Love and Luxe has more stories like this lined up to inspire your day. Your support means the world and helps us reach more hearts. As their bond deepened, though, subtle signs began to emerge that life was about to throw them a curve. Elena felt an unusual weariness creeping in, chalking it up to the relentless pace of the Aurora project's final push. Mornings brought fleeting nausea, afternoons a fog she powered through with extra coffee. She didn't mention it much, not wanting to worry Victor amid his own stresses, a major investor round that could make or break Apex's next phase. Little did they know, these whispers of change were building toward a storm that would test everything they'd built. The office hummed with energy on that fateful day, the boardroom packed for a pivotal update. In the heart of Silicon Valley, where ambition crackles in the air like electricity and every new sunrise brings another startup dream closer to reality, Elena Harper had already begun writing her own success story, one careful, determined step at a time. At 28, Elena was a project manager at Apex Innovations, the fast-rising tech company everyone was talking about. Apex wasn't just another firm chasing the next app or gadget. They were building real solutions for a warming planet, next-generation solar technology, energy storage systems that could keep lights on in places that had never had reliable power before. Elena's role was to make sure those big ideas didn't stay trapped on whiteboards. She led cross-functional teams, turned impossible deadlines into delivered prototypes, and somehow managed to keep everyone motivated even when budgets were tight and timelines were tighter. Walk into the open, sunlit office on any given day, and you'd spot her immediately. Dark curls pulled back into a practical, yet somehow elegant ponytail. Hazel eyes scanning screens and faces with equal intensity. A tablet always in one hand, and a quick, encouraging smile, ready for anyone who needed it. Colleagues called her the calm in the storm. She never raised her voice, never panicked in meetings, but when Elena spoke, people listened, because her words were always backed by preparation, logic, and a quiet fire no one could ignore. That fire didn't come from nowhere. Elena grew up in a small coastal town in Oregon, the kind of place where the ocean was louder than opportunity and winters felt longer than dreams. Her mother, Maria, raised her alone after Elena's father left when she was 4. Maria worked double shifts at a diner and cleaned houses on weekends, always tired but never defeated. Over late-night bowls of soup, she taught Elena the only lesson that ever really mattered. The world doesn't owe you anything, sweetheart, but it will respect you if you show up every single day and do the work. Elena listened. She studied by flashlight during power outages, earned every scholarship she could find, graduated high school as valedictorian, and then powered through an engineering degree at a state university on a combination of grants, part-time jobs, and sheer willpower. When Apex offered her an internship right out of college, she didn't hesitate. She started at the bottom, filing reports, shadowing senior engineers, bringing coffee to late-night coding sessions, and climbed steadily, proving herself project after project until she earned the title of project manager at an age when most of her peers were still figuring out their first real job. But success came with its own quiet cost. Elena's calendar was packed from dawn until well past dusk. Weekends were for catching up on emails or prepping for Monday's big review. Friendships faded into occasional texts. Dating felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. She told herself it was temporary, just until the next promotion, the next milestone, the next proof that she belonged in rooms where decisions worth billions were made. Deep down, though, she sometimes wondered if she was building a life no one would ever share with her. She pushed the thought away the same way she pushed through exhaustion. One more task, one more win, one more day closer to the version of herself she'd always promised her mother she would become. Yet even the strongest among us have moments when the armor cracks just enough for something, or someone, new to slip inside. And that moment was coming. High above the bustling open floors of Apex Innovations, on the top level where the glass walls offered an unbroken view of the valley stretching toward the bay, Victor Langston commanded an empire he had built almost entirely with his own hands. At 35, he was the youngest self-made billionaire in the renewable energy sector, and one of the few whose wealth felt earned rather than inherited or lucked into. The story of Apex began in a cramped garage in Palo Alto 12 years earlier. Victor was 23 then, fresh out of Stanford with a degree in electrical engineering and a head full of ideas no one else seemed to believe in. His parents had died in a highway accident when he was 16. The insurance payout was modest. The relatives who took him in were kind but distant. They fed him, clothed him, but affection was conditional, tied to grades, awards, proof that he wouldn't become another burden. So he learned early to rely on himself. He turned grief into fuel. Late nights in that garage became prototypes, small-scale solar concentrators, battery designs that stored more energy with less weight. He coded, soldered, failed spectacularly, and started again. The first real breakthrough came when a venture capitalist stumbled across one of his white papers online and offered seed money. Victor took the check, hired his first 2 engineers, and never looked back. Apex grew exponentially. What started as rooftop solar panels for homes evolved into utility-scale projects across continents. Governments courted him. Forbes put him on their 30 under 30 list, then Billionaires under 40. Headlines called him the Green Tech Messiah, the man who made sustainability profitable. Boardrooms deferred to him. Investors wrote blank checks. Employees admired him from afar, but admiration isn't the same as connection. Victor lived in a world of glass and steel, His penthouse downtown had floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and art pieces chosen by a decorator he barely knew. Mornings began with black coffee and market reports. Evenings ended with emails or strategy sessions that stretched past midnight. Weekends? More work, or the occasional high-profile charity gala, where smiles were photographed and conversations stayed surface level. He had dated, of course, beautiful, accomplished women who moved in the same circles, supermodels at fundraisers, executives at after-parties, influencers who saw his lifestyle as aspirational content. But those relationships always followed the same arc: initial excitement, mutual convenience, then a quiet drifting apart when real vulnerability was required. Victor never quite let anyone past the polished exterior. Trust felt dangerous. People had motives, agendas, expectations. Better to keep things transactional, safer. In rare quiet moments, usually late at night when the city lights blurred below, he would stand at the window, glass of scotch in hand, and feel the weight of it all. The empire was real. The impact was real. But the man inside the suit sometimes felt like a ghost in his own life. He missed the simple things he barely remembered. Someone asking how his day really was, not what deals he'd closed. Laughter that wasn't rehearsed for a room full of people, a hand to hold without strings attached. He told himself it was the price of success. Leaders sacrificed. Visionaries stood alone. Yet lately, the solitude had begun to ache in ways he couldn't ignore. Victor didn't know it yet, but change was already walking the halls of his own company. A young project manager with hazel eyes and an unshakable work ethic was about to step into his orbit, not as an employee seeking favor, but as someone who would see past the title, the fortune, the carefully constructed walls, and challenge him to lower them, just a little. It was one of those evenings when the office felt like a ghost town, most lights dimmed, the hum of air conditioning the only companion to the dedicated few who lingered. Elena had claimed the large conference room on the 5th floor, its long table scattered with printouts, her laptop screen casting a blue glow across her focused features. The Aurora project was at a critical juncture, a solar efficiency prototype that could revolutionize off-grid communities, but the latest simulations weren't adding up. She sighed, rubbing her temples, determined not to leave until she found the glitch. The clock on the wall ticked past 11. That's when the door eased open with a soft click, and Victor stepped in, carrying a stack of folders under one arm and a travel mug in the other. He paused in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the hallway light, surprised to see anyone else there. "Miss Harper, you're still here?" Elena looked up, blinking against the fatigue. For a split second she felt self-conscious, ponytail askew, sleeves rolled up, but his tone was casual, almost relieved. "Mr. Langston? Yeah, just chasing down a bug in the Aurora models. Can't let it slide." He set his things down on the table, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Aurora, our beacon project. Mind if I join? I've got some investor notes to review, but 2 heads might crack your puzzle faster." She hesitated only briefly. Interacting with the CEO one-on-one wasn't exactly routine, but nodded. Sure. Fresh eyes couldn't hurt. What began as a polite collaboration quickly transformed into something more engaging. Victor pulled up a chair beside her, peering at the screen as she walked him through the data. His questions were sharp, probing without being dismissive, and soon they were bouncing ideas back and forth like old colleagues. "What if we adjust the thermal coefficient here?" he suggested, pointing to a line of code. Elena ran the simulation, and the numbers shifted, closer but not quite. As midnight approached, the conversation veered from technical tweaks to broader visions. Elena shared why Aurora mattered to her. Growing up, we had days without power. Not because we couldn't afford it, but because the grid just didn't reach us reliably. This project, it's about making sure no one else feels that powerless. Victor leaned back, his blue eyes thoughtful. "That's exactly why I started Apex. My parents, they were environmentalists at heart, always talking about a sustainable future. After they were gone, it became my way to keep that alive. But sometimes in the rush of scaling, I forget the human side." In that shared admission, a subtle bridge formed. They weren't just boss and employee anymore. They were 2 people aligned in purpose, bonded by the quiet drive to make a difference. Laughter slipped in when Elena teased him about his fancy travel mug. "Is that custom engraved?" And he admitted it was a gift from a team member, a reminder to stay grounded. By 2 a.m. the bug was fixed, but neither seemed eager to leave. Victor stood, stretching. "Elena, this was refreshing. We should do this more often. Brainstorming, I mean." She smiled, packing her things. "I'd like that, Victor. Good night." In the days that followed, their connection grew organically. Victor began inviting her to strategy huddles, valuing her insights on real-world applications. Casual chats in the break room turned into deeper discussions, shared books on innovation, debates over ethical tech. They discovered aligned values, a commitment to equity, a belief that success should lift others, not just the few. Elena's grounded perspective balanced Victor's big-picture ambition, while his experiences inspired her to dream larger. It wasn't dramatic or rushed, it was a slow unfolding, like dawn breaking over the horizon, subtle, inevitable, and full of promise. From that night on, something shifted in the air between them. Victor still carried himself like the CEO everyone feared and respected, but with Elena, his voice softened. He stopped treating her like a name on a project chart. He started treating her like a person whose mind he trusted. Elena noticed the small things first, the way he listened without interrupting, the way he asked follow-up questions, not because he had to, but because he wanted to understand, the way his eyes stayed on her face a second longer than normal when she made a point he hadn't considered. And Victor noticed her too, in ways he hadn't expected. He saw how she held a room without forcing control. He saw how she protected her team, even when it would have been easier to blame someone else. He saw how she stayed after hours to fix problems before they became disasters, not for applause, but because she had pride. One Friday evening, the office emptied out early. A storm of deadlines had passed. People scattered for the weekend like they had been released from a cage. Elena stayed behind to close a few loops. She thought she was alone until she heard footsteps. Victor appeared at the doorway with his suit jacket in his hand instead of on his shoulders. His tie was loosened again, like that night in the conference room. "You're still here." Elena glanced at her laptop. 10 minutes, then I'm gone." Victor leaned against the frame. "I'm tired of going home to a quiet place after a week like this." Elena's fingers paused over the keys. "So go somewhere else." He took a step in, slow, careful. "I don't know where else to go." The honesty in his voice made Elena sit up straighter. She had heard Victor Langston in meetings, in interviews, on stage. That man never sounded unsure. This man did. She closed her laptop. "There's a small place 2 blocks away, nothing fancy. Good food, no one from here goes there because it's not trending." Victor's mouth lifted. That sounds perfect. They walked there without calling it a date. They sat in a corner booth, away from the window, away from anyone who might recognize him. Elena ordered like she belonged. Victor followed her lead. For the first 15 minutes, they talked about work. Then the conversation slipped into quieter truths. Elena spoke about her mother's hands, always tired, always moving. Victor spoke about his parents in short pieces, like he was still deciding how much pain he could set on the table. Elena didn't rush him. She let silence sit, the same way she did in tense meetings. She let him find his words. Victor stared at his plate for a moment, then said, "I don't like how empty my life feels outside this building." Elena held his gaze. "Then stop living like your life only matters when you're winning." He blinked once, slow. "You say things no one else says to me." "Because I'm not trying to get anything from you," she replied. That sentence landed hard. Victor didn't touch her hand across the table. He didn't cross a line. He only looked at her like he wanted to. When they left, the night air was cold enough to make Elena hug her coat tighter. Victor took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders without asking. Elena froze for a half-second, not because the gesture was big, but because it was gentle. "No," she started. "Yes," he said, calm. "You're shivering." They walked a few steps in silence. Then Victor spoke again. "Elena." She turned her head slightly. "Yeah?" I don't trust easily. I know. And I don't get messy. I know. His voice lowered. But I keep thinking about you. Elena's heart beat louder than the traffic. She forced her tone to stay steady. Victor, I work for you. I know. And if this goes wrong, I don't just lose a relationship, I lose the life I built. Victor stopped walking. Elena stopped too. He faced her fully on the sidewalk, his eyes focused like she was the only thing in the city. I won't ruin you, he said. I won't touch your career. I won't make you pay for my feelings. If you say no, I will respect it. Elena swallowed. She could have said no right there. She should have, if she was only thinking with fear. But she wasn't. She was thinking about how safe she felt in a conversation with a man who could have controlled the outcome, yet chose restraint. So she asked the question she needed answered. If we do this, what are you promising me? Victor didn't hesitate. Honesty, respect, patience, and protection in the way that matters. You won't be alone in this. Elena searched his face for performance. She found none. Okay, she whispered. Victor stepped closer, not rushing, giving her a clear chance to pull back. Elena didn't. He lifted his hand and brushed a curl near her cheek, slow, like he was memorizing the shape of her face. Then he leaned in, and their kiss landed soft, careful, and full of meaning. No hunger, no chaos, only a quiet agreement. From that point, their relationship lived in small, protected spaces. A short breakfast before the office woke up, a walk near the bay with hats pulled low, a late-night stop in an elevator where their shoulders touched, and they didn't move away. Victor started sending her a message when he landed after trips. Made it. Thinking of you. Elena started leaving him notes on his desk that looked like project updates to anyone else, but carried hidden warmth. Don't skip lunch. You're human too. He began showing up for her in ways that mattered. He defended her ideas in meetings without using her name like a shield. He gave her credit without making it feel like charity. He pushed boundaries in the company where it helped everyone, not where it made her look favored. And in the quiet of his home, he became someone Elena didn't expect. He cooked badly at first, then got better because she laughed and stayed anyway. He listened to her talk about her fears and never mocked them. He held her close on the couch, fingers tracing the back of her hand, like he was trying to learn how to be present. Their intimacy stayed tender. A kiss on her forehead when she looked tired, a long hug from behind while she washed dishes, whispers in the dark when their days felt heavy. Elena felt wanted, not used. Victor felt seen, not managed. Still, both of them knew the truth. This love carried risk. If anyone found out, the story could get twisted. People could call her a climber. People could call him reckless. Apex could become a headline, not a mission. So they agreed on rules. No public attention, no office displays, no decisions that tied her promotion to him. Elena said it clearly one night while they stood by the window, city lights below them. If you ever feel tempted to bend the rules for me, don't. I need to know you love me without taking away my dignity. Victor looked at her like he was proud of her strength. I won't, he promised. I love you because you refuse shortcuts. But if you're still here, I want you to do one thing for me right now. Type, I'm still watching, in the comments if you want this love to win. And share this story with one person who needs to hear what patience and respect look like in real life. Because the truth is, love feels safer when it grows in honesty. Weeks passed. Work got heavier. The Aurora project approached a major board review. Investors wanted proof. The board wanted speed. The media wanted a story, even though Apex avoided attention. Elena handled the pressure like she always did. She tightened timelines. She triple-checked numbers. She stayed later. Then her body started whispering warnings. At first it was simple tiredness. Elena blamed long days. Then came mornings when coffee didn't help. A strange wave of nausea hit when she stood too fast. A softness in her emotions she couldn't explain, like her nerves sat closer to the surface. She told herself it was stress. She didn't tell Victor. She didn't want to look fragile. She didn't want him watching her like something breakable. One Tuesday, she stood in the restroom at Apex, gripping the sink, breathing slowly while the room steadied. Her reflection looked the same, but something felt different inside her. She whispered, "Get it together." She splashed water on her face and went back to work. That week, Victor was facing his own pressure. A major investor round sat on the edge of yes or no. Apex needed it to scale Aurora. Victor tried to keep his personal life separate, but Elena could read him now. His jaw stayed tight. His eyes stayed sharper. His texts got shorter. Elena told herself she would talk to him after the board meeting, after the investor call, after the biggest day of the quarter. She kept postponing the conversation she didn't even know she needed yet. Then came the boardroom day. The glass room on the top floor looked perfect from the outside. Inside, the air felt tight. Executives lined the table. Screens glowed with charts. A laptop buzzed with live notes. A speakerphone waited for a remote investor to join. Elena stood at the front, remote in hand, heart steady, voice clear. She began the Aurora update. Slide 1. Slide 2. Slide 3. Her team had done good work. Her numbers were strong. Her story was clean. Then, on slide 6, a wave hit her so hard her vision blurred at the edges. Her stomach turned. Her hands went cold. Her heartbeat stumbled, like it couldn't decide on a rhythm. Elena tried to breathe through it. She pressed forward. She clicked to the next slide. Words on the screen swam. She heard someone ask a question, but the voice sounded far away. Elena opened her mouth to answer. Nothing came out. She took one step back. Her knees buckled. The remote slipped from her hand, and then she dropped. The room erupted. Chairs scraped. Voices shouted her name. Someone called for help. Victor's chair slammed back so hard it made a sharp crack against the floor. He was beside her in seconds, on his knees, one hand under her head, the other gripping her shoulder. "Elena. Elena, look at me." Her eyelids fluttered. She tried to focus on his face. His eyes were wide, not CEO calm anymore. He looked like a man watching his world crack. "Stay with me," he said, voice tight. "Please." Paramedics arrived fast. The ride to the hospital blurred into sirens and bright ceiling lights. Victor sat close enough to touch her, but held back because people were watching. His hands balled into fists on his knees. Elena drifted in and out, catching fragments. Victor says her name, a nurse asking questions. A doctor said, "We need blood work." Then she woke fully in a clean room with white walls and steady beeping. Victor stood near the bed, his suit rumpled, his hair slightly out of place, his face pale in a way Elena had never seen. He tried to smile when her eyes opened. It didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," Elena whispered. Victor moved closer, careful, like he was afraid she would disappear again. "You scared me," he said. Elena swallowed. "I'm sorry." A doctor entered with a clipboard and a calm tone. "Miss Harper," she said, "your collapse looks linked to a few factors. Dehydration, stress, low blood pressure." Elena nodded slowly, embarrassed. Then the doctor continued. "And you're 8 weeks pregnant." Elena froze. Victor froze too. The room felt too quiet for the weight of those words. Elena's mouth opened, then closed. Her mind raced backward through weeks, through symptoms, through denial. Victor's breath caught. He stepped closer to the bed, eyes locked on Elena's face like he needed to read an answer there. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Is that baby mine?" The question hung in the air like something fragile and sharp at the same time. Elena stared at Victor, her chest tight, her thoughts tangled. She had just learned her entire body was carrying a life she didn't even know existed. Her world was still tilting, and now the man she loved was looking at her like trust itself had slipped. "Victor," her voice trembled. "I just found out." He knew that. He did. But fear has a way of pushing reason aside. "I know," he said quickly, running a hand through his hair. "I know this is a shock. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked like that." The timing. You collapsed. The pressure. I didn't see this coming. Neither did I, Elena wanted to say. Instead, her eyes filled. She turned her face slightly away, toward the window, because the hurt hit deeper than she expected. You think I would lie to you? She asked softly. Victor's chest rose and fell. He stepped closer to the bed, then stopped himself, like he didn't know if he was allowed anymore. No, he said. I don't think so. I don't think that about you. But you asked, Elena replied. You didn't ask how I felt. You didn't ask if I was scared. You asked if the baby was yours. Silence followed. The monitor beeped steadily, grounding the room in reality while everything else cracked. Victor sat down slowly in the chair beside her bed. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. I panicked, he admitted. I'm not proud of it. I saw you on that boardroom floor, and I thought I was losing you. Then the doctor said those words and my brain went straight to control mode. I tried to make sense of something that doesn't make sense yet. Elena finally looked at him. His eyes were red. His jaw was tight. He didn't look powerful. He looked scared. But fear didn't erase the sting. I've spent my whole life proving I belong, she said quietly. At Apex, in rooms where people expect less from me, with you. I never asked for favors, I never crossed lines, and the first thing you did was doubt me. Victor shook his head. I doubted the situation, not you. It doesn't feel different from where I'm lying, she replied. Tears slid down her cheeks then, slow and silent. She didn't wipe them away. I didn't even know, she whispered. I thought I was tired because I was working too much. I thought the nausea was stress. I kept pushing because that's what I do. And now my body collapses in front of everyone. My career feels exposed, and the man I love looks at me like I brought chaos into his life. Victor stood up abruptly and paced 2 steps, then stopped. I love you, he said, voice breaking. That's why this scares me. This isn't chaos to me. This is bigger than anything I've planned for. Elena closed her eyes. Love doesn't start with suspicion. That sentence landed harder than anything else she had said. The doctor returned briefly to explain next steps. Rest, tests, monitoring, no stress, no work for a few days. When she left, the room felt smaller. Victor reached for Elena's hand, hesitated, then rested it gently on the edge of the bed. Tell me the truth, he said, softer now. Not because I doubt you, because I need to hear it. Elena met his gaze. There has never been anyone else, she said. Not emotionally, not physically. This baby exists because of us. Victor let out a shaky breath he had been holding since the boardroom. I believe you, he said immediately. I do. But you didn't at first, she replied. He nodded. And I have to live with that. The weight between them settled, heavy, real. Outside the room, the world kept moving. Inside, everything paused. Victor stayed until visiting hours ended. He didn't talk much after that. He listened. Elena talked about fear, about how her body felt unfamiliar, about how she didn't know who she was allowed to be now. A project manager, a woman in love, a mother. Nothing in my life has ever come easy, she said. I don't want this to turn into something people use against me. It won't, Victor said firmly. Not on my watch. She looked at him. This isn't something you fix with power. I know, he replied. That's why I'm asking you what you need. Elena thought for a long moment. I need space, she said finally. Not because I don't care, but because I need to hear my own thoughts before I hear anyone else's fears. Victor nodded, even though it hurt. I'll give you that, he said. But I'm not walking away. When he left, Elena stared at the ceiling, one hand resting on her stomach, still trying to understand what her body had already begun. The love she and Victor built was real, but trust had taken a hit. And now they stood at the edge of something that could either deepen everything they were, or pull them apart. Pause here for a moment. If you were Elena, what would you do next? Would you forgive the fear behind the question? Or would you protect yourself first? Comment below with your thoughts. Like this story if it hits something real for you. And subscribe to Mr. Love and Luxe if you want to see how honesty, patience and accountability shape what happens next. Because the hardest moments don't end love. They reveal it. The first night alone after Victor left the hospital room felt longer than any Elena had lived through. The lights dimmed automatically at midnight. The hallway outside grew quiet. The steady beep of the monitor became her only companion. Elena lay on her side, one hand resting on her stomach, not protectively yet, more like she was trying to confirm something real existed there. A life, inside her, without permission, without warning. She replayed Victor's question again and again. Is that baby mine? She knew where it came from. Fear. Loss. A man used to controlling outcomes, reaching for certainty when the ground shifted. But understanding didn't erase the hurt. By morning, Elena made a decision. Not about the baby. Not about Victor. About herself. She would not let silence decide this. Victor arrived just after sunrise. No suit this time. Dark jeans. A plain sweater. He looked like a man who hadn't slept and hadn't tried to hide it. He stopped at the doorway when he saw she was awake. "Can I come in?" Elena nodded. He stepped closer but didn't sit. He stayed standing, hands loose at his sides, like someone waiting for judgment. "I brought tea," he said quietly. "Ginger. The nurse said it helps." "Thank you." He set it down carefully. Silence stretched. Victor broke first. "I'm sorry." Elena didn't answer right away. "I know you said that yesterday," he continued, "but I need to say it again. I handled that moment badly. I let fear speak before trust." Elena turned her head to face him. Why was fear louder than love? The question landed heavy. Victor exhaled. He pulled the chair closer and sat. "I've never been good at uncertainty," he said. "My life taught me that if you don't control the narrative, you lose everything." Elena waited. "When my parents died," he continued, eyes fixed on the floor, "nothing made sense. One day I had a family. The next day I was silent, no warning, no explanation, just a loss." He swallowed. "So I built a life where surprises didn't exist. I plan, I will prepare, I protect. When something big happens, my instinct isn't emotion, it's defense." Elena's voice softened, and the baby felt like a threat. "To the version of me that survived," Victor said. "Yes." She absorbed that. "I've spent my whole life surviving too," Elena replied, "but in a different way. I survive by trusting myself, by knowing I don't need permission to exist in rooms that weren't built for me." Victor looked up at her then. "And when you asked that question," she continued, "it didn't just question the baby, it questioned my integrity, my independence, everything I worked to protect." "I know," he said, "and I hate that I did that to you." Silence returned, but it felt different now. Less sharp. Elena took a breath. "I need to be clear about something before we go any further." Victor nodded. "I'm listening." "I will not be in a relationship where I have to prove my honesty," she said. "Not to you, not to anyone. If we rebuild, it has to be on equal ground." Victor didn't hesitate. "Agreed. And I won't disappear into motherhood," she added. "I love my work. I love who I am. This child won't erase me." His voice was steady. "I don't want it to." Elena studied him. Not the CEO, not the man with power, the man sitting in front of her, stripped of armor. "Why do you want this?" she asked. "Us, the baby, the mess." Victor thought for a long moment. "Because for the first time in my life," he said, "I don't want to build something alone. I don't want a legacy that ends with my name on a building. I want one that ends with a family at a table." Elena felt something loosen in her chest. "But wanting isn't enough," she said. "I know," Victor replied. "So tell me how to do better." That question mattered. Not a promise. Not a defense. An invitation. Elena leaned back against the pillows. "First," she said, "you stop trying to lead this like a company." A faint smile flickered on his face. "Fair." "Second," she continued, "we talk, fully, about fears, about expectations, about what this changes." Victor nodded. All of it. And third, she said quietly, we take this one step at a time. No grand gestures yet, no fixing, just honesty. Victor reached out, palm up, stopping just short of touching her hand. May I? He asked. She placed her hand in his. His grip was gentle, grounded. I'm here, he said. Not as a CEO, not as a savior, just as a man who loves you and wants to earn your trust back. Elena didn't pull away. She hasn't forgiven everything yet either. But something shifted, not healed, not whole, but moving. That afternoon, Elena was discharged with strict instructions. Rest, no work, follow-up appointments scheduled. Victor drove her home but didn't go inside. I meant what I said, he told her at the door. I'll give you space. She nodded. Thank you. As she watched his car disappear down the street, Elena placed both hands on her stomach for the first time with intention. Okay, she whispered. We'll figure this out. The days after Elena returned home moved slower than she expected. Not because her body forced her to rest, but because her mind refused to rush anymore. She woke up later, ate deliberately, sat by the window with a blanket around her shoulders, and watched the city wake up without her. Emails piled up. Messages from her team stayed unread. For the first time in years, Elena chose herself without guilt. Victor respected the boundary. He sent one message each morning. Thinking of you, no pressure. I'm here. No follow-ups, no demands. That restraint mattered more than any speech. 3 days later, Elena invited him over. He arrived without flowers, without a plan, without the need to impress. Just him, honest, present. They sat at opposite ends of the couch at first. Space still lived between them, but it no longer felt hostile. I've been thinking, Elena said, breaking the quiet, about what scared me most after the hospital. Victor waited. It wasn't the pregnancy, she continued. It was the idea of losing myself inside someone else's fear. Victor nodded slowly. And I've been thinking about how often I mistake control for care. Elena turned toward him. That habit didn't start with me. No, he said. It started when I learned that attachment leads to loss. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. My parents died when I was 16, no warning, no goodbye. After that, every adult in my life treated love like a transaction. Do well and you're valued, fail and you're tolerated. Elena listened without interrupting. So, I built a world where I couldn't be abandoned, Victor continued. Money, power, structure. If I controlled the variables, nothing could disappear. His voice dropped. Until you. Elena felt the weight of that admission. You didn't fit the system, he said. You didn't need anything from me. You didn't adjust yourself to impress me. You challenged me, and I trusted you anyway. Until you didn't, she replied, gently but honestly. Victor nodded. And that's on me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document, then set it on the table between them without pushing it forward. I had the paternity test scheduled, he said, not because I doubt you now, but because clarity matters for both of us. Elena looked at the paper. Her chest tightened, but not with anger. I already agreed to one, she said quietly. Not to prove anything, but because I don't want questions living between us. Victor met her eyes. Thank you. They didn't touch during that conversation. They didn't need to. Truth filled the room. Later, as the sun dipped low, Elena spoke again. I need you to understand something else, she said. Independence isn't a wall for me, it's a foundation. I can love deeply because I don't disappear in relationships. Victor smiled softly. That's what drew me to you. But pregnancy will change things, she continued. My body, my energy, my pace. I need to know you won't try to take over my choices under the excuse of protection. Victor answered without hesitation. I won't. I'll ask before acting. I'll listen before deciding. She studied him. Even when you disagree. Especially then. That night, when Victor stood to leave, Elena surprised both of them by stepping closer. She rested her forehead against his chest. not asking, not demanding, just learning. Victor wrapped his arms around her slowly, like he was holding something sacred. They stayed like that for a long moment. No words, just reassurance. A week later, the test results came back. They sat side by side at the kitchen table when Elena opened the email. Positive. Paternity confirmed. Victor closed his eyes and let out a breath that sounded like relief mixed with awe. He didn't celebrate loudly. He didn't gloat. He reached for Elena's hand and squeezed gently. "Thank you for trusting me enough to do this together," he said. Elena nodded. "Thank you for not turning certainty into control." Something settled between them then, not perfection. Stability. That evening, Victor stayed. They cooked together. Slowly, awkwardly, laughing when he oversalted the soup. Later they sat on the couch, Elena's legs curled under her, Victor's arm resting around her shoulders. His hand brushed her arm now and then, grounding, respectful. "This feels different," Victor said quietly. "It is," Elena replied. "We're choosing each other with eyes open." He kissed her temple. "I don't want to be fearless. I want to be honest." She leaned into him. "That's stronger." For the first time since the collapse, Elena slept without tension in her chest. Not because everything was solved, but because the truth no longer lived in hiding. Elena returned to Apex 2 weeks later, not quietly, not apologetically, and not alone. Victor insisted she take more time. She refused. "I won't let absence speak for me," she told him. "I need to show up on my own terms." So they planned carefully. No dramatic reveal. No whispered rumors left to grow unchecked. No chaos. The executive leadership team met first. Closed room. Phones off. Elena sat at the table in a soft navy dress, posture straight, voice calm. Victor sat beside her, not at the head. That alone sent a message. "I experienced a medical emergency during the last board review," Elena began. "I'm recovering well. I'm also pregnant." A pause. "I will continue leading Aurora with adjusted timelines and support. This role remains earned, not gifted." Victor spoke next. "Any questions about favoritism can be addressed directly to me. Elena's position stands on performance. That has not changed." No one challenged it, because no one could. The company announcement followed later that day. Simple. Humans. Controlled. No names. No speculation. Just facts and respect. Elena braced for whispers. They came. Of course they did. But they didn't define her. Her team responded first. A handwritten card was left on her desk. A chair quietly pulled out for her in meetings. A junior engineer said, "Thank you for showing us you don't have to disappear to be strong." That one stayed with her. Victor made changes quietly. He adjusted meeting lengths, built wellness breaks into schedules, approved remote flexibility without framing it as a favor. When an executive pushed back, Victor said one sentence: "If our systems only work when people break themselves to fit them, then our systems are flawed." Elena watched him say it without looking at her. That mattered. At home, pregnancy became real in small ways. Doctor visits, nutritional plans. Victor learned to read labels like he was studying contracts. Elena laughed the first time she caught him Googling best prenatal pillows. "You don't need to solve everything," she told him. "I know," he said, "but I want to be useful." "You already are." Their intimacy deepened, slower now, more intentional. Victor listened to her body, her moods, her silence. Some nights, they talked about fears. Elena admitted she worried about being judged as less committed. Victor admitted he feared repeating his parents' absence in another form. They didn't try to fix each other. They stayed. One evening, Elena stood barefoot on the balcony, hands resting on the curve that had just begun to show. Victor stepped behind her, resting his hands over hers. "I don't want to rush this," he said, "but I want you to know I see a future." She turned to face him. "So do I, and for the first time, it doesn't feel like I'm sacrificing myself to get there." He kissed her forehead. then we're doing it right. At Apex, Aurora passed its next review. Clean. Approved. Praise. Elena led the presentation. Steady. Confidence. Unshaken. Afterward, Victor caught her eye across the room and nodded once. Pride, not possession. That night, Elena slept with a sense of alignment she had never known before. Her work, her body, her love, not in conflict, working together. Pregnancy slowed Elena in ways ambition never had. Not weak, different. Her body asked for pauses she could no longer ignore. Her energy rose and fell without warning. Some mornings she woke ready to lead. Other days, the simplest tasks felt heavy. Victor learned to read those shifts without commentary. He stopped asking, "Are you okay?" He started asking, "What do you need today?" Some days the answer was space. Some days it was a company. Some days it was silent. He honored all of them. Their evenings changed rhythm. Long strategy talks gave way to slower dinners. Victor cooked more. Elena rested more. They learned from each other in this new season without resentment. One night, Elena sat on the edge of the bed, frustrated, tears spilling before she could stop them. "I hate feeling unpredictable," she said. "I hate not recognizing myself." Victor knelt in front of her, steady, grounded. "You're not disappearing," he said. "You're expanding." She looked at him, eyes wet. "I don't want to be carried." "I know," he replied. "So, let me walk beside you." That became their rule. Side by side. No hierarchy. No rescue. They attended appointments together. Victor listened more than he spoke. He asked questions Elena didn't think to ask. He learned. When the doctor mentioned stress management, Victor didn't look at Elena. He looked at himself. He reduced his travel, delegated more, trusted his leadership team instead of controlling outcomes. Apex didn't collapse. It improved. Elena noticed. "You're changing," she said one night. Victor nodded. "So are you. I don't want growth that only benefits me." Their intimacy grew quieter but deeper. Victor kissed her belly without ceremony, held her through restless nights, talked to the baby softly when Elena slept. Elena watched him become a father before the world ever knew. One evening, as the sun sank into the ocean during a short coastal getaway, Elena said, "I want this child to grow up seeing respect modeled, not negotiated." Victor took her hand. "Then we're already winning." He didn't propose yet. He waited. Because love, he was learning, didn't rush the moments that mattered. By the time Elena entered her third trimester, life had settled into something steady and real, not perfect, but honestly, her body had changed enough to demand acknowledgement from the world. The curve of her stomach was no longer subtle. The way people looked at her shifted, some with curiosity, some with respect, some with assumptions she refused to carry. Victor stayed close, but never overbearing. He attended fewer galas, declined, panels, let other executives speak for Apex, not because he was retreating, but because he was choosing presence over applause. One Friday, he suggested a weekend away. "No phones," he said. "No schedules, just air and quiet." They drove north along the coast, windows down, the ocean stretching wide and endless beside them. Elena rested her hand on her stomach the whole way, feeling small movements that still startled her into smiles. They walked the beach at dusk, shoes in hand, sand cool underfoot. Victor stopped near the waterline, the sky washed in soft gold and blue. "Elena," he said. She turned, already sensing the weight in his voice. "I've been thinking about timing," he continued. "About how often people ask questions before they're ready to leave the answers." She studied him. "Where is this going?" He took her hands. Grounded, certain. "I don't want to ask you out of fear," he said. "I don't want to ask you because a baby exists. I want to ask you because I know who you are when things are calm and when they're hard." Elena's breath caught. "You taught me how to listen," he said. "How to love without control. How to build something that doesn't require shrinking anyone." He dropped to one knee. The world went quiet. "Elena Harper," Victor said, voice steady. "Will you marry me and continue building a life where trust is chosen every day?" There was no crowd, no flash, no performance, just the truth. Elena's eyes filled. She laughed softly through tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes." Victor stood and pulled her into a careful embrace, pressing his forehead to hers. Not possession, partnership. They didn't announce it immediately. They sat on the sand until the sun disappeared, hands intertwined, talking about names, values, mornings, mistakes they still planned to forgive. Back at Apex, Victor formalized changes he had been shaping quietly. Expanded parental leave, flexible return structures, wellness protections written into policy, not offered as favors. When an executive asked why the sudden shift, Victor answered plainly, "Because building the future shouldn't cost people their present." Elena returned to work part-time, led when present, trusted when absent. No one questioned her place. Trust had replaced curiosity. At home, they prepared together. The nursery filled slowly. Books stacked unevenly. Names written and erased. One night, Elena said, "I want our child to know that love listens before it decides." Victor smiled. "Then we're already teaching that." Labor began quietly. No drama, no rush. Elena woke before dawn, with a deep, steady pressure low in her body. No pain yet, more like certainty. She sat up slowly and placed her hands on her stomach. "It's time," she whispered. Victor was awake instantly, not frantic, focused. They moved through the morning like they had practiced without ever rehearsing. Bags ready, lights low, words a few. At the hospital, Elena stayed calm longer than anyone expected. She breathed through contractions with eyes closed, Victor's hand firm in hers. "You're doing this," he said quietly. "We're doing this," she corrected. Hours passed. Intensity grew. When pain finally broke through Elena's control, Victor stayed grounded. He didn't try to distract her. He didn't speak over her. He followed her rhythm. At one point, exhausted and shaking, Elena looked at him and said, "Don't let me disappear." Victor leaned close, forehead to hers. "You're here. I see you. I'm not going anywhere." Those words carried her through the hardest moments. When the baby arrived, the room filled with sound and relief, and something Elena had never felt before. Completion. The nurse placed the baby on her chest. Small, warm, real. Elena cried without restraint. Victor stood frozen for half a second, then moved closer, eyes wide, breath unsteady. "Hello," he whispered. The doctor smiled. "Congratulations, you have a healthy baby girl." Elena laughed softly. "Nova," she said. "Her name is Nova." Victor nodded, voice thick. "Nova Langston." He cut the cord with hands that didn't shake. Later, when the room quieted and the world narrowed to just the three of them, Victor sat beside Elena, his hand resting gently on Nova's back. "I didn't know love could feel like this," he admitted. Elena smiled tiredly. "That's because you stopped trying to control it." Victor kissed her forehead. "Thank you for not giving up on me when I gave you a reason to." She looked at him. "Thank you for learning instead of defending." In the weeks that followed, life rearranged itself. Sleepless nights, soft mornings, a home filled with small sounds and big meaning. Victor took real leave. No emails, no calls, no exceptions. Apex adjusted, because leadership learned to stretch. Elena returned to work slowly. On her terms, she wasn't diminished. She was expanded. One afternoon, Victor stood in the nursery holding Nova, while sunlight spilled across the room. "This changes how I see everything," he said. Elena leaned against the doorframe. "Good, it's supposed to." Victor looked at his daughter. Then at Elena. "I don't want Apex to be known only for innovation," he said. "I want it known for humanity." Elena nodded. "Then lead that way." Life after Nova didn't slow down. It clarified. Mornings began earlier, but with purpose. The house is filled with soft sounds, breathing, movement, small cries that meant trust, not neediness. Victor learned the language of presence, not solving, not fixing, showing up. He learned which cries meant hunger and which meant comfort. He learned how Elena needed quiet some days and laughter on others. He learned how to carry responsibility without carrying control. Elena watched him become a father without losing himself. That mattered. At Apex, the changes Victor introduced took root. Parental leave became standard. Flexible schedules stopped being whispered privileges. Performance reviews shifted focus from hours logged to impact made. When board members questioned the shift, Victor didn't argue metrics. He told the truth. People build better futures when they don't fear losing their present. Productivity rose. Retention improved. Trust deepened. Apex didn't weaken. It matured. Elena returned to her role fully 6 months later. Not with apology, with confidence. Her leadership carried a new depth. She listened more, delegated better, drew firmer boundaries. When a younger colleague hesitated before announcing her own pregnancy, Elena met her eyes and said, "You don't need permission to have a life and a career." That moment echoed. Victor proposed again one quiet evening, months after Nova's birth. Not because the future demanded it, but because it felt right. They married on a quiet beach. No press, no spectacle. Just family, laughter, and vows spoken clearly. "I choose you," Elena said. "Every version," Victor replied. Nova slept through most of it. Years later, Victor would say the greatest thing he ever built wasn't Apex. It was trust. And Elena would say the greatest thing she ever protected wasn't her independence. It was her voice. Trust grows through communication, not certainty. Vulnerability doesn't weaken love, it gives it roots. Growth means changing systems, not shrinking people. If this story stayed with you, ask yourself one question. Where in your life is honesty waiting to be chosen? If this moved you, like the video. Share it with someone who values dignity and love. Subscribe to Mr. Love and Luxe for stories that remind us who we are when life tests us. Because the strongest relationships aren't built in perfection. They're built in truth. Stories like Elena and Victor's do more than entertain. They hold up a mirror. They ask us to look at our own choices, our fears, our patterns, and the quiet moments where life invites us to grow. So let's talk about what this story was really about. Not the billionaire, not the boardroom, not even the romance. It was about becoming. Lesson 1. Trust grows through communication, not certainty. Victor asked the wrong question at the worst possible moment, and that mistake mattered. But what changed everything wasn't a test result or a grand apology. It was a conversation. Honest, uncomfortable, vulnerable conversation. Trust doesn't come from knowing everything in advance. It comes from being willing to talk when things feel unclear. From asking questions without accusation. From listening without preparing a defense. In real life, many relationships break not because of betrayal, but because fear speaks louder than honesty. Ask yourself this. When something scares you, do you talk or do you assume? Victor spent years believing control kept him safe. Elena spent years believing independence meant standing alone. Both were strong. Both were incomplete. It was vulnerability that allowed them to build something lasting. Victor learned to admit fear without hiding behind power. Elena learned to accept support without losing herself. Strength isn't about never needing anyone. It's about choosing a connection without surrendering your voice. In your own life, where are you holding back because you're afraid vulnerability makes you small? It doesn't. It makes you real. Elena refused the false choice many people are forced to accept. Career or family, success or love, identity or responsibility. She chose integration. Victor changed systems instead of shrinking people. Elena led without apology. Together, they proved ambition doesn't have to erase humanity. The real question isn't, can you have both? It's, are you willing to redefine success? Success that costs your health, your voice, or your relationships isn't success. It's survival dressed up as achievement. Victor didn't fix his mistake by explaining it away. He owned it. He listened. He changed behavior, not just words. Redemption doesn't mean you never fail. It means when you do, you take responsibility and grow. We all ask wrong questions sometimes. We all let fear speak first. What matters is what you do next. Do you double down on being right? Or do you choose to become better? The baby changed everything not because of what she represented, but because of what she demanded. Presence, patience, adaptation. Life rarely gives us clean plans. It gives us moments that force us to choose who we are becoming. Elena and Victor stopped trying to predict the future. They focused on showing up well in the present. That's how legacies are built, not through certainty, but through consistent, intentional choices. Joy came quietly. A home filled with laughter. A company shaped by empathy. A child growing up seeing respect modeled, not explained. That's the impact. So here's the question I want you to carry with you. Where in your life is fear asking you to control, when love is asking you to communicate? If these lessons resonated with you, smash that like button. Share your biggest takeaway in the comments. Subscribe to this channel for more uplifting, meaningful stories. And hit the bell so you never miss one. Because stories don't change us by magic. They change us when we choose to listen. Thank you for being here. Before you go, let me leave you with this. Stories like Elena and Victor's don't end when the screen fades. They keep working on us quietly, in the way we speak to the people we love. In this way, we pause before reacting. In this way, we choose honesty over fear, even when fear feels safer. And if this story stayed with you, then you'll want to be here for the next one. Because the next story asks a different question. What happens when love returns after time has already written its scars? Next time, we'll follow a woman who rebuilt her life in silence, until the man who once walked away shows up, asking for a second chance he may not deserve. Power shifts, truth surfaces, and one decision changes everything. You won't want to miss it. If this story moved you, do 3 things for me right now. Like the video, so more people who need these lessons can find it. Comment on your biggest takeaway. I read them, and they matter. Share this story with someone who believes in dignity, growth, and love done right. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your moment. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and stay with us. We tell stories here that don't just entertain. They remind you who you are. This is Mr. Love and Luxe, thanking you for your time, your heart, and your presence. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your people, and keep choosing the truth.